Good afternoon and good day wherever you may be joining us from. Welcome to another edition of the Digital Download, the longest running weekly business talk show on LinkedIn Live, now globally syndicated on TuneIn Radio through IBGR, the world's #1 business talk, news, and strategy radio network. Today, we're addressing why sales teams keep missing their targets. We have a guest, Mark Cox, to help us with the discussion. Founder of In the Funnel Sales Coaching and author of Learn to Love Selling, Mark has dedicated years to helping B2B sales teams achieve double-digit growth through structured, repeatable strategies that deliver results quarter over quarter. But before bringing Mark on, let's go around the set and introduce everyone. And while we're doing that, why don't you in the audience reach out to a friend, ping them, and have them join us? We strive to make the digital download an interactive experience, and audience participation is highly encouraged. Right. With that, Tim, would you kick us off, please?
Welcome, everybody. My name's Tim Hughes. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite, and I'm really excited to have Mark on today. And I'm famous for writing the book, Social Selling, Techniques to Influence Buyers and Changemakers.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Adam, welcome.
Hello, everybody. I'm Adam Gray. I also am co-founder with him of DLA Ignite. And I'm really excited to watch some more of Tracy's dancing that she was doing just a moment ago, because that was fantastic. A great way to start the show. So
it's great for radio, too.
Telling people to bring their friends, come to the show. But we can call it dancing.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Adam. Bertrand.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning. Good day. My name is Bertrand Godillot. I am the founder and managing partner of Odysseus & Co., working with customers to create more customer conversations. And I'm very glad to be here today. I'm not dancing, though.
He's not that glad to be here today.
Thank you very much, Bertrand. Tracy.
And good morning, all, because it is morning where I am. I am Tracy Borison, your friendly and neighborhood authentic marketer with TLB Coaching and Events, a proud partner of DLA Ignite. And I'm excited because I get to be here 2 weeks in a row, which doesn't happen that often. So that's why I'm dancing. I'll do all the dancing today.
We're excited to have you here, too. Thank you very much. And myself, I am Rob Durant. I am the founder of Flywheel Results. We help startups scale. And I, too, am a proud DLA Ignite partner. As I said, this week on the Digital Download, we'll speak with Mark Cox. Mark's experience with hundreds of companies and thousands of sales professionals offers practical insights for any business leader or sales manager looking to build a resilient, high-performance team. Let's bring him on. Mark, good morning and welcome.
Oh, thank you for that. That's a warm welcome. Thanks, everybody. It's just great to be here.
nice to see you, Mark.
Nice to see you, Adam. Love the guitars behind you.
Yeah, so at least I won't be playing them, which is a win, isn't it?
Mark, let's start by having you tell us a little bit more about you, your background, and what led you to where you are today.
Yeah, interesting question, Robin. Thanks. So most of my career was spent running large sales organizations in either outsourcing or technology companies. And I did that for about 15 years. And about 10 years ago, we intentionally founded this company, In the Funnel Sales Training. And what we thought there was a huge opportunity to elevate the profession of sales to the profession it really is. And we do that by training sales leaders, salespeople, and BDRs and SDRs, people who do prospecting. And our belief is that by making these professionals better at what they do, we actually improve the lives of professional salespeople. So we've been doing that training for 10 years now. We actually have training that impacts behavior. And we love this subject matter because we know that professional sales is the most important business discipline there is.
Excellent. So, Mark, let's start with a foundational question. in your opinion, why do sales teams keep missing their targets?
Well, it's a bit of a loaded question, right, Rob?
Okay.
And I'm sure it's very good to get attendees here, which is awesome. But one of the things I'd first start with is when we start to think about the targets that salespeople get, we have to remember that just by nature, there's no expectation that any sales team ever hits 100%. So let's go back to the way quotas are created and goals are created. There's sandbagging from the CEO on down. The CEO passes to an SVP of sales, that passes to a VP of sales, that then passes to sales team. They distribute quota. But every stage, each of those persons sandbags. So if the CEO's goal is 1 million, they distribute 1.3. That layer down then distributes 1.5. So when we talk about teams hitting quota, I know people like Gardner and McKinsey, they love these X number of people are missing quota. This is not like tracking performance of somebody in HR or finance. There was sandbagging built into this model. But I think today, generally, if we were looking at 2 reasons that most sales teams miss quota, I think there's a strategic issue, and then I think there's a tactical execution issue. The strategic issue is we are wasting time chasing the wrong buyers. So a lot of the times when we come into organizations, we start to assess how they're doing. We do that as part of our training programs. We understand that they're actually not measuring twice to cut once. They're chasing lots of folks for conversations, many of which are the wrong folks. So this idea of spending a little more time on the strategic end to say, listen, do I understand who the economic buyer is or a key buyer is? Do I have the right person? Do I have the right information? Spending a little more time, oftentimes the sales enablement gang or the marketing gang, Tracy, helping us with that. So am I chasing the right person? The second challenge we have generally, across the board, if we had to pick one thing, is there is still a prevalence of pitching instead of helping. So if we're new to professional sales, particularly, we get on a call, we can't help it, right? Our fear centers in the amygdala are super huge. So I'm nervous, I'm a little scared. I'm going to default to pitching instead of having a calm confidence and triggering a conversation, which is all I really want to do, because selling's about helping. It's not about pitching. So I think those are the 2 things that people listening today were to think about for their organization, whether you're a mid-sized organization or a large enterprise. Both those issues are highly prevalent today.
I knew we were going to get along, Mark. So many of those things that we could talk for hours just based on that. But I want to pick up on that sandbagging. Isn't that setting up your team for an attitude of failure?
Yes.
And is that detrimental?
Is it detrimental? Absolutely. Who feels good when they think they're losing the hockey game or the football game? So who feels good when that's happening? But again, you have to realize where this came from, particularly over the last 8 to 10 years. Venture cap, we were talking about SaaS companies before we joined this morning. Venture capital throw tons of money into mid-sized organizations that are looking to scale out of the messy middle into a large enterprise. They want to see that money spent on sales and marketing. Okay, so they want to see it in there. And so they're giving huge goals. They want to triple revenue. They're looking for exits. They don't really care about the impact on the 30 new BDRs they just hired, right? I won't name it here, but even a very large top 10 enterprise software organization today does group interviews for BDRs and SDRs. They hire 30. They're going to have 13 left after 3 weeks. They don't care. So what we really care about is the psychological impact on the self-esteem of that BDR who just got hired out of college or university. Can't wait to tell their friends and family, I got hired by a top 10 technology company, and 4 weeks later, they have no job. So I think we're getting very lazy about training salespeople, about hiring the right salespeople. We bring, huge BDR and SDR farms into organizations, set crazy goals. And if the vast majority of the sales team doesn't meet it, but 3 or 4 can carry us to quota, the VP of sales or sales leader feels like they won. And by the way, I have a lot of love for that VP of sales or sales leader because they're only lasting 18 months in the jobs they're in right now. So the whole model's kind of broken. I think we're set up for this nice common sense revolution in professional sales. But I'd much rather have realistic goals that we can beat because everybody on the team feels 2 inches taller and I feel like I've got a wonderful head of hair. And it's far easier to recruit people into an organization, the kind of people we want, when we give them attainable goals and people beat their goals and they surpass their target incomes instead of being 2/3 of what their target income is.
So we absolutely concur with everything you've said, but isn't the argument from the enterprise level organization that's hiring bunches of salespeople, they're a commodity, they are a crop to be harvested. So I'm going to hire 30, I'm going to get a 50% wastage within the month. But actually, I don't care because what I'm looking for is those 1 or 2 people that have a natural ability to outperform the rest. And whilst, if you're a big enterprise level organization, you can afford to pay people very well. And they know that if they're being paid 20% above the industry average, then they're going to be getting a rough time and someone is going to be riding them quite hard. So that's kind of potentially their expectation. And this is very much a sink or swim. I'm looking for people that absolutely have got a natural talent for this, and everyone else, they can be hired by my competitors. I don't care. Yeah. And so if that's the norm, and we've got a constant stream of quality people in college, how do we change this dynamic?
What a great question, Adam. But let's think about how that flows down. I don't care. I'm seeing my team as tools to help me achieve my goal no matter what happens. If I don't care about my team and truly helping them unleash the potential that they've got within them, they're not going to care about our clients and prospects. They're going to see our clients and prospects as tools for them to hit their quotas and get their paycheck and do all of those things. This is where this sort of death spiral in professional sales comes from, because suddenly the prospects and the buyers, as everybody on this call knows, sort of puts up their hands and says, listen, I don't want to take that next conversation from Mark Cox because he doesn't care about me. He's pitching. He's got a sense of desperation in his voice, probably got 90 days before he gets taken out of the company. I think this is that common sense revolution that we need to change. And by the way, there are a lot of organizations out there, by the way, where they fix this. They have a different approach. It's hard, by the way. It's hard to take a step back from that command and control management and go to this management that says, actually, I care about Tracy and I'm trying to unleash her true potential. So I'm going to give her leeway. I'm going to intentionally try and train and coach her. I'm going to try and help her develop. I want to make her the hero of the story. And, all of you are entrepreneurs and you've got amazing success stories, far more interesting than mine. It's highly likely you had a couple of those leaders along your journey to get you where you are today. And you still remember them and they're still meaningful to you. And when you come across them in a social setting, you really do have a little bit of love for these people. We need more of that, right? Everybody's desperate from the top down and everybody's unhappy. The clients and prospects are feeling it and everything has to be about them. And if they feel like the person they're talking to is desperate and they want to pitch and they're panicking and they don't enjoy the experience, which is how we got here to a certain extent. Again, there's a lot of great stuff happening in professional sales right now, but I think we have to treat it a little bit more like a profession.
We have some great comments coming from the audience, so we want to bring some of those on screen. Thank you all and keep them coming. First, we have from Tyler Moylan, bringing humanity to capitalism. Respect your saying it. He goes on to say, when we treat making profit only as a mathematical equation, we gain profit, but at the cost of humanity. Amen. Peter Else says, it's all about building capacity. Otherwise, it's just pushing rocks uphill. And from Akar Hayden Duplessis, I do my best. I apologize if I butchered your name. How do we keep improving our sales initiatives? So, Mark, I turn to you with that question. How do we change this?
Well, a couple of ways. First of all, I'd start top down. I'd just say, let's create reasonable goals and objectives for the organization. So when it comes down from, and by the way, that takes a lot of courage around the executive table, right? So that's where you've got a sales leader stands up and says, listen, we've grown this company at 13%, CAGR for the last 3 years. Now we've got some money put in. We're not going to bump this thing up to 75% CAGR. So I'd rather have that courageous conversation there than have to have 5 courageous conversations with BDRs and salespeople I hired that I have to let go 9 months later. So that's where we start. Let's start with realistic expectations. And then we have to have this point of view that says, if I have a mature model where we know how to do this, okay, let's do the math and replicate it. But if I'm in a mid-sized organization where we haven't grown and we still don't have perfect product market fit, I think we have to have the second courageous conversation that says it takes 6 to 18 months for somebody to ramp up in an enterprise sale. Are we going to give them that time? Or are we going to just keep churning? Tim's laughing because he and I have been with large enterprise software companies where the legal teams, have a graveyard of desk plates, in their office, and they're joking about how many people have come in and gone. So I think you have to have this sort of reasonable assessment. Okay, this is what it takes to ramp up. And gang, I will drink our own champagne. As part of our training initiatives, particularly with mid-sized companies, we have these conversations with CEOs because we get in, we do a little due diligence and consulting with them to make sure the training's going to resonate for their team. And that's where we'll have, as a third party coming in, we have a little more chutzpah to tell the truth because we're not worried about a job. So we can let somebody know that if you don't have a history of 100% growth, it's not going to trigger overnight. If you haven't been booking, 5 meetings a week, 7 meetings a week, because you're not leveraging the DLA Ignite social selling model, we're not going to get 6 different BDRs ramped up in 30 days where they're all doing it flawlessly. I think we just have to give people a little bit of time for that growth. And a little more patience in professional sales, because I think if we have that patience, then I think our clients and prospects are going to feel it, that we're not trying to pitch or control or hit a quarterly number, but we're actually trying to help.
So Mark, let me just pick up on the VCs, because you said it's the source, basically.
It is.
The expectations is what is driving most of the disaster later on. So do you see changes in this? In other words, do we have VCs that start to think differently?
So Bertrand, maybe two comments. So first of all, you said, hey, driving the disaster. I will call out again, I actually don't think our profession's in a disaster right now. I think it makes for better news and conferences and research papers from big names. But I actually think we're doing amazing things. I think people in professional sales, we're the engine driving business. And I think we're doing really, really amazing things. And according to Frank Cespedes, who's one of Harvard's top people in professional sales today, he's been doing it for 30 years. He was on the front end. In his book, Sales Management That Works, if you graduate college or university today, you have a 1 in 2 chance of being in a professional sales job at some point in time in your career. So the profession's expanding. I think a lot of great things are happening. I think many people understand our profession's about being, really it's management consulting. in, at enterprise sale level rather than pitching and cajoling. But do I see things changing? I would say, again, I don't have the data, Bertrand, but we've all seen what happened to SaaS in the last 3 years. So this idea of chasing the rule of 30, the rule of 40, grow at any cost, we're not making money, that changed overnight, and then they ended up dropping lots of people. So I think maybe there's a bit of a common sense, idea coming around there, where you have to go to these almost entrepreneurial fundamentals that say you grow a business by adding value to clients. And so you're not scaling as fast as you can at any cost. We want to properly grow and actually add value, and then we can build long-term value into the business that way. I think a lot of leaders were chasing the SaaS exit, but one thing I think people have realized is it was exciting to be on those journeys with those companies, but gang, 3 people in those exits do well. So you got a 75-person SaaS organization. And by the way, God bless them. Entrepreneurs are amazing. They take all the risk. They've got the stories of running the business on the credit card. But 3 people exit well. Right? So it's not the model that works for the whole organization. We got to figure out the model that works for the whole organization, for the sales team. And so I do see things, Bertrand, moving in the right direction because the market has this way of correcting.
All right.
Great question, though.
Mark, I have a question. You talked earlier about the strategic challenges and the tactical challenges and how the strategic is really tied into chasing the wrong buyers. In my experience from a marketing point of view, very often the sales team will offload that completely to marketing and be like, marketing, you figure out who our key buyers are, and then we'll just use your personas and we'll go find people. Do you feel like that's a productive way to identify key buyers, or do you see it as in sales and marketing have to work together in order to figure this out?
Well, you know what, Tracy, it's hard for me not to answer the latter, the way you teed that question up, and I don't want to mess with you. So I'm going to be totally honest. I've already figured out how this works, and I'm probably most afraid of you.
It's the pink headphones. They're super intimidating.
The pink headphones, but so I really think, joking aside, Tracy, I think there's this real opportunity for sales and marketing to work more closely together and to make sure that the KPIs are more closely aligned. And so, in fairness, I think I have to look in the mirror first. We've done 100 episodes of the Selling Well podcast, and Tim's been on it, and all these great people have been on it. And it's only recently that we actually had a marketing expert on. So I think maybe I'm part of the problem where it's, hey, how could we have 100 conversations and not find a marketing expert like yourself for the podcast? But it was Matt Hines. He's a good guy. And we had this great conversation about, trying to align the KPIs between sales and marketing so that there's going to be a natural tendency, which I think, or tension, which I think is always good at an executive team level to a certain extent, as long as it's healthy. But you want to get away from, hey, we got you a lead. And then, so marketing's saying, hey, we got the leads, we got the conversations, and sales is coming back saying it's the wrong conversation. It was a terrible lead. So we have different types of KPIs. And I think there's always that opportunity for sales and marketing to be more closely aligned. And one of the things we just coach on is a little bit of empathy. So for both organizations. So in large organizations we work with, we don't understand why marketing isn't in the sales meetings, or why sales isn't in or having representation in the marketing meetings. They shouldn't be silos, because we're all trying to do the same thing, which is help more clients and prospects.
Yeah, and this is the thing I always think is we're trying to help the same people, right?
Right.
And I'm over here, and then be like, my job is just to get many leads, so that I get many leads, and then I blame sales because sales doesn't close the leads. That's a sales problem. It's not a marketing problem.
Right.
My job is to get many leads, but then sales very commonly is well, marketing's giving us. These aren't real leads, right? They're just people. And then you're well, I don't know if this is a are they pitching them and not helping them? So that's actually the wrong person, or like, how wrong can it be? I've created my marketing persona, right? And so I feel like that very minimally, there needs to be like an active feedback loop between sales and marketing to understand, not just like your leads are terrible. Okay, well, that doesn't help me, right? So like, what is terrible about them?
Yes.
Be more helpful for you. And it's really interesting because I started just working with a new client recently, and they also have a fractional sales leader. And I sat in on the sales meeting when he was onboarded, and there's just, I mean, I think everybody kind of gets at the end of the day that sales and marketing have to work together, but they also don't really expect it to work. Like, oh yeah, marketing's usually doing that over there, but that doesn't usually have any kind of impact to sales. And I'm like, wait, and we let that happen? Like, that sounds like something we're letting happen.
That's the norm, isn't it? You know,
right.
the companies that I talk to,
happen, we don't have to.
Yeah, the companies that I talk to, the vast majority of them don't have this single view of the customer and single view of what their objective is. They live in their silos. You know, it's my job running the company to ensure that I measure each person to ensure that they are providing value to the organization. So I'm going to measure you on leads, Tracy, because that's nice and easy. I'm going to measure you on closed business. Mark, you only ever, last year you did 80% of your number. The year before you did 80%. I need you to do X. Therefore, I'm going to overquote you 125%, because then when you hit 80%, because you always do, then I'm going to get the money that I need. And unfortunately, this is very simplistic a view of things. You know, it's like, what's your contribution to the world? Well, I'm rich. Okay, well, it's easily measured, but actually it's not the measure that we should be employing for people. And I think that the challenge is that when organizations are so often living on this knife edge, you know, it's an incredibly competitive world. The investors are demanding their pound of flesh. You know, we're asked to do more with less. We have to run the company leaner. We have to grow the company. You said 3 times increase in sales. I mean, that's a fairy tale for almost every organization that there's ever been. You know, tripling your revenue this year. I mean, it's like Twitter did it and Facebook did it, but that's it pretty much.
I worked for a company who had a goal of 5 timesing their sales in 1 year without changing anything operationally or strategically.
And it's nice because, you know, they pop open a bottle of champagne and they say at the kind of the annual kickoff and say that's what we're going to achieve this year, with no concept as to how it's actually going to happen. And unfortunately, whilst there is a pool of people available that appear to be good, I say appear to be good because actually a salesperson that's out of work is normally out of work because they haven't hit their number. So there's a large number of people that are available in this pool. They've got varying qualities of CV. Tim's just going to sack the half a dozen that haven't performed well in our company and hire half a dozen more because there's a million out there that he can hire. So he's going to pick the 6 that appear to be best.
By the way, that's a metaphor. I'm not actually.
No,
Thank you.
Tim is very much in your thing about, you know, this is a hand-holding exercise and a development exercise of individuals. And, you know, we as an organization want to do the right thing. And you want to do the right thing. But actually, most organizations don't want to do the right thing because the right thing is make more money so that they can pay their staff well and they can return revenue to shareholders or investors in the organization. And until we break that cycle, there will always be a reason for doing it. Why am I going to hire you, Mark? Because you're a dreadful person to run this company. Because I delivered 120% year-on-year growth. Oh, okay. Well, that's why I'm going to hire you. I don't like you. I don't like your the way you do things. But I do like the fact that I've got a new Lamborghini parked outside.
So I could add things to this, and Mark and I have talked many times before, and I'm not going to, because I could sit back and tell lots of terrible stories. But Mark, I just want to change the conversation. Is it true that you have a book out?
Well, thank you for that. I had heard something about.
And so Mark, because this goes out over internet radio, you can't just hold things up and that. You can hold things up and you've got to read it at the same time. So what's your book, Mark?
The book is called Learn to Love Selling, the Universal B2B Sales
Hold it up so
Playbook.
people can see. That's it. Go on.
Learn to Love Selling, the Universal B2B Sales Playbook. Thank you for that, Tim.
And where could we get a copy of that?
Amazon. Jump on
Oh, right,
Amazon.
okay.
And
It's
And
down
just to
now.
confirm, that's not a pitch. That's helping.
thank you. Thank you, Tracy. And I'm just being polite. Tim asked a very direct question. I just wanted to respond as thoroughly as I could.
If I
This
buy
is
a copy of your book, what will I learn from reading it?
Oh, great question, Adam. Thank you. So what we tried to create with our experience and expertise and background was to figure out what are the steps needed to convert any core capability into revenue? What are the core steps required to convert any core capability into revenue in a B2B format? So when you think of the literally 70,000 books out there in B2B sales, many of which are just absolutely dynamite. We hadn't found one that says, okay, no matter what I'm dealing with, mid-sized organization with a product market fit that I'm trying to replicate, or a large enterprise where I've taken over a territory and I'm trying to step in and figure out what do I need to do to be successful. We tried to create the framework for that. And that's fundamentally what we've developed over the last, I guess, 20 years that I've been doing this. And we've captured it in the book. So that's what you'll get from reading the book, Adam. You'll figure out the steps that you need to take to get both strategic and then tactical to execute on just converting any core business capability into revenue.
And Tyler Molan has basically asked a question. Don't know if you can bring that up, Rob, which is there an audio book?
There is. Thank you, Tyler. There's not an audio book yet. It's coming. So a little bit of a fun story. So with AI today, we all got to be talking about that. We did convert the book into an audiobook with AI, and when they gave me the first chapter, I was shocked at how good it was. I couldn't tell the difference. All they did was load some podcasts for us up and then load the chapter of the book. But there's some idiosyncrasies in it because of the way I write. And now there's a new AI tool that will take your book and convert it so it is better to be used by another AI tool that will make the audiobook, and we're going to do that. So it's coming in the next 30 days. But Tim, as you know, this will save me 2 or 3 days of recording, in a studio.
I want to come back to that book as well as something that you said earlier. But first, I want to address some great comments that we've had. We've got a comment from YouTube. D. Bowden says sales, marketing, and accounts receivable need to be connected. The sale is not complete until the money is in the bank. Amen to that. Lindsay Sheldrake says alignment starts at the top. Silos hinder more than help. Empower your people to work together towards shared objectives. Mm-hmm. And a LinkedIn user shares with us, it has to be a continuum. Creating distinct compartments creates breakpoints and creates false KPI chasing outcomes. Absolutely. So, Mark, earlier you made reference to Frank Cespedes' book, and I believe what I heard you said was, and I'm paraphrasing, at this point, half of the people who graduate college find themselves in a sales role at some point in their career.
Yes. And
your book, Learn to Love Selling, I would infer from that title that there are people who don't love selling. Who could possibly not love selling?
Is there anyone in the audience who would self-identify as not loving selling today?
Yeah, that's right.
That would be interesting to hear.
Man, I hope the whole premise isn't wrong. We may have to revisit that. Well,
I will share with you, Mark. I was a reluctant seller.
Well,
I will also share with you that most of the people I know who have found themselves performing in a sales scenario, and especially because my background is marketing, I feel like marketers are like, no, I'm a marketer. I'm not in sales. Yeah. But we actually do a lot of selling, folks.
Well, you know what? They're both great comments. Tracy, think about that. I'm not in sales. I'm in marketing. We get a lot with client success teams. We also do work with client success teams. We get a lot of those folks saying, listen, I'm not in sales. I just build relationships and help customers. And so we go, guys, this is, you know, this is not Glenn Gary, Glenn Ross, okay? Gil from The Simpsons was not an accurate depiction of what actually happens in B2B sales. So that's all it is. But sometimes, again, there's still that stereotype. And what I should mention is Frank's book didn't mention anything about people leaving college and university and wanting to end up in sales. They said they're going to end up in sales, that, you know, 1 and 2 will end up in sales in a professional sales job. The analogy I make, team, and we've all been there, right? You know, you look at Adam's background, he's got guitars on the wall. He's obviously a musician. My money's on he's a pretty good one. There's a joy.
You've lost.
Yeah, sorry. There's a joy to mastery, right? You know, Dan Pink's book, Drive, the 3 things that drive people. There's a joy to mastery. So when you actually know what you're doing and you don't feel you're out of control, and I'm picking up the call and I have no control over what happens in this conversation, if I actually have a game plan and I know what I'm doing, and I actually have the right intent, which is to help someone and make a deposit before I ask for a withdrawal, I'll actually like it more. And that positivity and that energy, because I've got good intent, comes across. You know, same thing in any sport you take up as an adult. It's not a lot of fun at the beginning where you're terrible. Tracy and I think everybody on this Zoom call should learn to play hockey, because why wouldn't you? How can you live a life without being on skates or try and catch a puck going 70 miles an hour? I don't understand why anybody wouldn't want to do that.
And Mark is the goalie.
I am the goalie.
He's the ice hockey goalie.
Yes,
And
right.
also,
That
I
explains
don't play
so
ice
much.
hockey, so we should probably just clarify that.
So he's got a puck flying at him at 70 miles an hour.
And if,
Yes, but it's the metric system there, so it's completely different.
Very hard.
That's right. And then it hits you. You know, so and usually in places you don't want to get hit, but it's more fun, and I haven't attained that in hockey, believe me, but it's more fun if you've got some sort of sense of mastery or some sort of some sense of control. And that's where the learn to love it is. We've just come across, whether it's mid-sized organizations and, you know, all of these people, Tracy, who default to what you just said, hey, I'm in marketing, I'm not in sales. It's like, oh my gosh, that's a nightmare. So I do think, first of all, I'm a lifelong learner. I still learn continually. We had the pleasure of bringing DLA Ignite into one of our 2 clients, and I had Adam and Tim just do an amazing job, and I was learning the whole time. And frankly, you know, when you're curious and you learn things, you get a dopamine hit. So we like learning, but sometimes we have to trigger that again, that growth orientation. Sometimes we have it in one stage of our life, like we're really watching lots of YouTube videos to learn how to cook or to do woodworking or to do carpentry, but we think professionally whatever skills we have are fixed. So I think we can all get a little more control, and everybody listening to this, start reading, listen to great podcasts like this one. And there's so much good material out there. And the only caution I have is, you know, look at the source for these things. You know, I reference Frank Cespedes from Harvard because he's written 9 books. One of them's called Aligning Strategy in Sales, one of the best books I've ever read, period. And so just make sure that you're not catching a quick internet platitude that said, hey, I was successful because I shouted at a customer and they responded. Like, it's literally that insane, some of the things you pick up. So you have to look at the source. It doesn't have to be us. But I do believe that if you learn how to do this, it just becomes a joy, because I think smart people are intellectually curious and they want to learn about clients and prospects, and they actually love that conversation.
I also think that you said about mastery, and you said about music and then sport and other stuff. And I think that one of the things that's often overlooked is practice as part of the mastery thing. Because, you know, it doesn't matter whether or not you're practicing your sales pitch, or you're practicing your script, or you're practicing the technique of writing a blog post, or you're practicing the presentation. My guitar teacher said, you need to practice every part of the performance, even the performance. And it's so crucial that when I'm facing off against you in a helpful way rather than a combative way, but when I'm facing off against you, I'm confident enough that no matter which way the conversation goes, I can cope with that. And I think that I know that you guys do a lot of kind of like role playing and getting people to repeat things and rehearse and refine. So explore that a little bit. What would your advice be to somebody that is just starting on their journey to be interacting with people, and how should they practice?
Yeah, great. So first, I love that, Adam. First of all, let's think about what we have to practice. And so there's some of those things in the book, like I need an answer to, who are you folks? What do you do? That's coming up in every conversation I have with anybody, anytime. Hey, we're good. We're already using somebody for this. Why should we have this conversation? So we call that the value proposition message, where you have to say, what do you do? How does what you do tie to a desired outcome of a client? And then what's unique and different about you given their options in the marketplace? But then I would go to folks, particularly if I'm new on board, Adam, and I'd go to people who know. I would ask, hey, Tim, how do you actually explain the value proposition of DLA Ignite? Hey, Rob, when a client comes back and says, hey, we're good, we don't need to work with anybody, we already have a supplier for this, what do you actually say to them to keep the conversation going? Hey, Tracy, what are the 3 really important things that our solution does for a client? What do we do for them and for their business? So I think I love role playing, Adam, professionally, sitting down and just trying it with a peer, because I'd like to have that conversation with a peer first or somebody else new before I get, on a call with a live prospect and panic. And then, I think after you do it a little bit, you start to realize you get better when you plan and prepare. And then, as you say, rehearse. So I'm either going to learn on live calls where I'm wasting my time and the time of the prospect, or I'm going to leverage video, my cell phone. I'm going to practice and rehearse. Even today, folks, I still do demand generation for in the funnel. So at some point in time for our large scale training of big corporations, they still want to talk to me. So at some point, I'm going to think about it, sit down and think about, okay, what's my desired outcome from this conversation? By the way, I know no matter who I'm talking to, they're going to remember 3 to 5 things. What core message do I want to leave them with? How do I structure that conversation? What are they likely to push back on? What are some concerns they might have? And I don't think objections are a bad thing. I think people think through things by saying, addressing some of their fears. So, and then also, what do I think I want to close for next? What am I hoping will happen? So just a little bit of preparation and rehearsal. And Adam, as a musician, you know this. If I go 2 weeks without playing drums and then go to band practice, it's not good. And given my personality, I'm always, one band practice away from getting kicked out of a band. Let's be honest with you. So it's not good. They don't need much more to just push me out the door. But you do want to, I warm up before I go on the ice to play hockey, because at my age, bad things could happen. And so you want to warm up before I get into the day and start working. And before I start picking up the phone and having conversations with people or engaging most important meetings, I want to get in the right mindset. So rehearsal, repetition, completely underutilized in professional sales. But the best footballers in the world practice more than everybody else. They practice 4 to 5 times more than they play games. And they're the best in the world. That's how they stay there.
You said about when you're facing off against a customer and your exact words were, and you panic. So we all get into that situation where we're having an interaction and we become nervous at what's going on. So what advice would you give a salesperson that is in that situation? This is a high pressured environment. They're scared.
Yes.
How can they hide that fear, or at least work with that fear to perform at their optimum?
Amazing. Thanks, Adam. I'd go back to, what you said at the beginning, which was you said, listen, I want to understand what the structure of this call is going to look like, this conversation, if it goes really well. And then I also like to think about back doors for me too. What am I going to do with this conversation if it doesn't go really well? What would I say? Because when I'm in the middle of the call, I'm no different, by the way. Sometimes we do cold calling or demand generation in front of a team we're training. So we'll do that for a couple of hours, and they'll give us the worst leads they've ever had. So they'll throw them in, and we're going to be reaching out. No matter what happens, I want to think through those things before I sit down and pick up the phone and start calling on their behalf. Because if I know how it's going to go, whether it goes well or not, even if it goes a little left of center, I've already thought about what to do. What happens with fight or flight, anytime you get a little surprised, somebody picks up the phone and they go, I'm really busy. Why should I talk to you? We can't help ourselves because, again, our fear center of our brain is so prominent. That's how we evolved as human beings. We were scared and we stayed in the group and we didn't come out and try and attack the saber-toothed tiger. The person who did that got killed and their gene pool was gone. So we're pretty good at 5 times a second. We're checking out our environments for things that are dangerous to us subconsciously. But if I do get a little nervous, suddenly all my blood's going, I got the fight or flight, my blood's going to my extremities in case I need to run away. I'm not the smartest tool in the shed in that moment. I'm not going to ad lib super well. I'm not, on the stage of Saturday Night Live because I'm a genius at improv. So I need to think about the 3 or 4 things that are going to happen and rehearse them, and I can get a little more comfortable. And by the way, a simple back door, if somebody says, well, I'm totally not interested, I'm not sure why you're reaching out, wasting my time. One back door for us would be to come back and say, well, listen, Tim, I just want to thank you so much for your time today. And you are one of the few large enterprise software organizations in Canada that we haven't had a relationship with. So my intent today was just to formally introduce our company to yours. I'm sorry if I caught you at a bad time. I very much appreciate your time. And I'd be delighted to speak with you anytime in the future if sales training's coming up for your team. Now, is that an amazing, outcome for me of the call? Not bad. It's not terrible, but I know what I'm going to do if I actually catch somebody. The truth of it is you never catch somebody who's that angry or that, ticked off or all of these kinds of good things, but I just know what I'm going to do. So it makes me feel a little more comfortable when I'm reaching out.
So, Mark, what assuming we get, because I suspect that's the case, that you get faced with a sales team who have missed their target.
Yes.
Can you share with us some of the, maybe 1 or 2 examples of strategies that you use to re-motivate, re-engage the team? Is that down to the leader, or are there specific strategies that you can use?
Yeah. So Bertram, I think maybe the thing to do is to sit down with someone. And again, you need this safe environment. And sometimes being an outsider, believe it or not, team, they feel more safe speaking to me or with somebody on our team, because again, if I've been on a sales team for 12 months or 14 months, I may not be that comfortable telling my boss, I don't even know what to say, when I get, when somebody puts this objection. I feel like I should know that by now. And boy, Tracy, we've got a really important new guest here today. Who's that?
We do. Nicholas is joining us, folks, for those of you who have seen him on
Hi,
the show
Nicholas.
before.
Hi, Nicholas.
He wants to learn to love selling.
Happy
If
Friday,
there's a 50%
buddy.
chance he's going to end up in sales, he should probably.
God, isn't he growing up?
I know, 6 years old.
Oh my God, he'll be leaving home soon.
Happy Friday, Nicholas.
Nicholas has no school today, so he gets to hang out on the digital download.
Awesome. We're glad you're here. We're glad you're here. And so Bertram, to go back to that, then the other thing is just to have this conversation. I think a lot of one-on-ones and meetings with salespeople. I think the salesperson walks in and the sales leader kind of feels this is about inspection. And then there's going to be a little judgment. Hey, Mark, you're missing your numbers. And so I'm not feeling good. They're not feeling good. I think there's a different type of conversation where we just call it a sales boost meeting and go, listen, hey, Bertrand, I just want to sit down with you. Let's go for a coffee to do this maybe. And let's just have this conversation about what's going on in the territory. And as a leader, I'm trying to diagnose, are they doing the wrong things or not doing the right things? Or are they doing them the wrong way? So what's going on? But I want to move away from, hey, I'm going to make that judgment based on what I saw in Salesforce. You know, certain of you are old enough to see what happened with the advent of these technologies that came on board in kind of 2011, 2012. What it did, it took sales leaders out of the field and move them back in their office so they could start counting everything. And now, man, I'm a genius. I'm just going to count. And then we started making like accountant sales leaders because they're so good at counting. So I'd really just want to have that conversation. And the basis for that conversation for me is always, I do want to know what's driving Rob. So I don't know if Rob cares what I know until he actually feels like until he knows that I care about him. So why is it Rob does this job? You know, how many Nicholases does Rob have? Okay. What does Rob want to do with his career? 5. Wow, Rob. Heavens to Betsy. Thanks for making the call today. I can't believe you got here. So really, I think it's, you know, from that leadership level, if it's not working, we have to have a reasonable conversation where the salesperson doesn't feel it's all judgment. And at some point in time, we roll up the sleeves and say, listen, my job here is to try and make you successful or help you be successful. They have to believe I want to do that. And then we can have this open conversation where they say, well, listen, Mark, I'm really getting stuck after the first conversation. Every conversation I have, you know, with the head of a wealth management organization, they absolutely have no interest in the CRM technology that we're selling. I don't know how to trigger, you know, interest. And they say, okay, great. Let's talk about that. So are they doing the right things, or are they doing them the right way? And then ask them what they think is going on. But you need to understand what they're trying to get out of the role. We assume everybody wants to make more money. We assume everybody wants to move into management. Those are false assumptions. Okay.
Mark, you're telling the sales leaders to care about something different. Right now, what they care about is their quota, their number, and so on. I'm reminded of the line from Into the Woods, where Prince Charming says, I was bred to be charming, not sincere.
How about that? That's fantastic, by the way. Yeah, you know, Stephen M.R. Covey, Stephen Covey's son, took the Covey Institute, merged it with Franklin Planners. I think may have this wrong. I think he got a 65x return for shareholders when he did that. He took over his dad's company and blew it up. But he's written a great book called Trust and Inspire. And really the core theme is, hey, as a leader, our job is to unleash the potential of everybody on the team. It's not to use them as tools for us to get our goals and objectives. And one of the things to think about if you're in sales leadership today is, why are you there? You know, is it because you thought that was the next logical step up the chain, or do you actually enjoy seeing a team get better? There's a big difference between a good football player and a great coach. Those are not always the same. We've seen nothing but examples where the best football player could not go into coaching, but tried anyway.
Right.
So I think we need to just think about at a leadership level. I think that's kind of the X factor of B2B sales these days, is just making sure we have the right leadership.
Rob, before you close, could you just bring up Dee's question? There's a question to you, Mark. Can you remind people what the title of your book is?
Oh, thank you so much for that question, Dee. The title of the book is Learn to Love Selling, the Universal B2B Sales Playbook. Learn to Love Selling, the Universal. It's available on Amazon. And Dee, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to plug the book. I appreciate it, sir.
Mark, this has been great. Where can people learn more? How can they get in touch with you?
Thank you so much for that question, Rob. So the easiest thing to do is connect with me on LinkedIn. Connect with me on LinkedIn. So it's Mark Andrew Cox on LinkedIn. And the company is In the Funnel. So the website's inthefunnel.com. Team, I'm going to proactively bring up that if you have not read Social Selling by Tim Hughes, you should read it today. So we talk about this common sense revolution in B2B sales. I can say firmly, social selling works. The strategies in that book absolutely work. And when you're trying to figure out how do I trigger more conversations where I'm trying to help folks, the strategies and processes in social selling will absolutely help. And that's not just because I'm on this podcast. Check out my posts because I comment on this all the time. So there's some great stuff there as well. Rob and team, thank you so much for hosting me on the podcast. It's been a huge pleasure.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
We now have a newsletter. Don't miss an episode. Get show highlights, beyond the show insights, links to our guest's book, and reminders of upcoming episodes. You can scan the QR code on screen or visit us at digitaldownload.live/newsletter. On behalf of the panelists, to our guest, and to our audience, thank you all for being a part of this week's Digital Download, and we'll see you all